Beautiful. The No Name Show for now,
The
but
No Name.
but I know
Welcome
now
everybody to the No Name Show.
the No Name Show with Michael Mabry. I'm so excited to get started on this journey of having conversations with great people, and it was without a doubt easy to pick and ask for my first guest. Stephen Brooks has been a great friend and mentor to me for the past 5 years, someone who I've looked up to as a coach, as a person, and he's given me great guidance both on and off the field. And for this show, one of the things I do want to talk about is the power of relationships and mentorship. So, you're the perfect guy to come on. I really appreciate it, my guy.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad I can be the first one.
Of course. I want to get right into it. What are 3 things today, man, that you're grateful for? You know me, I'm a big gratitude guy, so let's just start off hot there.
On just today?
Yeah, just today.
One thing I'm grateful for is obviously waking up and being able to have my wife, my 2 kids, and my in-laws live with me, so it's really important to have that. Another thing I'm grateful for is school. The fact that they open the schools. My son thrives on being in school. He's kind of pushes my buttons when he's in virtual, but when he's in school, he's focused, he's dedicated, and that's what I know he's capable of doing. Very grateful for that. And, the third thing is just being able to have this day. It's a beautiful sunny day right now.
Yes, sir.
It's been a little gloomy here for the last couple of weeks, so I'm really grateful to see the sun, because whenever I see the sun, my nickname in college was actually Sunshine by my college coach. And so whenever I see the sun, he always thought of me as just always smiling. He's like, "Hey, Brooks, your dog can die, and you still have a smile on your face." I was like, "Yeah, pretty much."
I love that. Well, then that makes me want to dive into that because, one thing I didn't touch on in the beginning, but we're going to cover it as we go. Steven is one of the most decorated lacrosse players of all time. And, there's so many unique things about his career, his upbringing, that make for such a great story. And I'm sure we'll tap into some of it. I don't think we'll have time to go into all of it. But I like Sunshine. I've actually never heard that story, so I'd like to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, I think it was my freshman or sophomore year. It was late in the day. We got done with practice. At the time at Syracuse, there was Manley Fieldhouse, and Manley Fieldhouse was the old original basketball stadium before they built the dome. So they had the actual original court. They had the full-out wooden bleachers that would pull all the way in and retract all the way out, so they can move in and out. And behind that was a little track circle. And there's probably about an 8 to 10 foot side section with a net all the way around it where guys can go shoot. And there's not a lot of space, but you can do wall ball and whatnot. I get done with practice, and I'm just walking back to the locker room, and then Coach Donahue is walking towards the locker room as well. He says, "Brooksy, what were you just doing?" I was like, I was just getting some reps in and just trying to get some shots, and just, I didn't get enough of practice. And I just had a smile on my face. He goes, "That was a pretty hard practice, wasn't it?" I was like, "Yeah, it was pretty tough. Those sprints are hard." He's like, "Well, Jesus, why are you smiling?" I was like, "I don't know, Coach. It's just I'm here. I'm just always in a good mood." He's like, "Dude, your dog can die and you can still have a smile on your face. I'm gonna start calling you Sunshine." And ever since then, he was like, "Hey, Sunshine, how you doing today?" And ever since, he's just started saying that. And still to this day, if I text him, he'll be like, "Hey, Sunshine," still tell stories about how you are and your work ethic and what you did. And just one of those things that stuck. And I've always loved sunny days. I don't know why. It's just when a sunny day happens, I'm in a fantastic mood. And when it's dark and gloomy, stay away from me.
You feel it too. Okay, that's good to know. I appreciate that. That makes me want to jump into a little bit more on the mentorship side. What are some things, Coach Donahue, Coach Desko, those guys, when you were at Cuse, things that you in the moment you were like, wow, I'm learning a ton right now. These guys are really providing me great guidance, but maybe also things now, years away from playing under them that you can look back on and say, man, those lessons learned on the field, off the field from those guys have really shaped me.
I think Roy Simmons was the assistant coach, and his father was the head coach at Syracuse, and his grandfather actually started lacrosse at Syracuse. His grandfather played lacrosse and football with Jim Brown, and he coached Jim Brown, and so that whole legacy for the Simmons family. And when I got to Syracuse, Roy Simmons is the legacy as it goes. He's one of the most open people you can ever see or meet, and he's very spiritual. And he doesn't really want to talk lacrosse. He wants to talk about who you are, what you're all about. And his big thing was the field's your canvas, and you're the artist. Just paint it and see where it goes, because there's nothing that you should be strict on how you paint. Just let it free form, and that's the style that Syracuse started playing. Years passed, they went all the national championships, And, they start getting these hiccups, later in the years, and things evidently had to change. But the one thing that Simmons always used to do back in the day is like you used to travel Friday, play Saturday, drive home. Well, he would travel Thursday night after practice or Thursday in the afternoon after a morning practice, drive to the city wherever he's going, find a museum. So on Friday, they'll do a walkthrough, and then he'll take the team through a museum and teach them about history. It's something completely different than lacrosse. And all the guys that talk about having old man Simmy, we call him the Wizard, as his head coach, they still thank him to this day because they're the ones going to museums. They're the ones taking their kids to do all these certain things that Simmons instilled on them. And then when I had Roy Simmons as a coach, he just instilled in me about family and just it's nothing about lacrosse. Lacrosse is just a gift given to be able to play. And the best gift you can possibly have is being here in the moment and just surrounding yourself by great people and just being comfortable in your own skin to be yourself. And that's something I really took it hard. But, Desco was always, he's the one that basically took the chance on me. Coming out of Bridgeton Academy, I wasn't getting recruited by much. I was verbally committed to Denver, but nobody looked at me because I was a kid from Illinois. Nobody wanted to take that risk. And he was the guy that said, hey, I want you to be here. I want you to do something about it. And so I love that. And then on top of all that, it's the alumni, mostly at Syracuse, and some of the mentors that I had. My freshman year, my grad assistant coach was Ryan Powell. And my first ever Syracuse practice, I come down, fast break, I'm a lefty. This is like after we do stick drills, we go right into fast breaks. And I'm like, what is going on right now? We're just going right full field. And I was like, okay, go fast break. I catch the ball over my right shoulder. I break up the field. I'm coming down. And who's at point? Mikey Powell, the world's greatest lacrosse player that I've watched all his brothers play. And I am so nervous. I'm like, oh my God, please just give him the pass with my weak hand right to his stick. That's all. I just draw the guy, throw the ball. Well, I did my job. I threw it. I'm just like watching the ball slowly. I felt like that pass took 10 seconds, but it slowly got right into his ear. And I was like, yes. And he caught it, faked behind the back, looked down where he faked it, and threw the ball back. I then looked down as a dumb rookie, and I was like, where's the ball? And by the time I looked back, the ball hit me square in the face mask, and I literally got laughed off the field. And at that moment, Ryan Powell came up to me and says, hey, it's a lot faster than you think, huh? I was like, yeah, this game is so fast. He's like, don't worry about it. You'll catch up. Don't worry about those guys laughing at you. Just prove them wrong. And I was like, at that moment, it's like Ryan Powell, I'm like my idol. Okay, like, all right, I'll just have to prove him wrong. And I think 2 plays later, I came down and I stuck a corner. And I was like, all right, maybe I do belong here. And that just gave me motivation. There's a lot of guys like that. But that's like the biggest story of my career, to make sure that, like, hey, I'm here. I know I made a mistake. This guy's telling me just to keep pushing forward. All right, that's the motto. Let's just keep moving forward. Don't look back.
I love it. And that last piece right there about an older player, instilling that confidence in you and helping you get over a mistake quickly. And, one of the reasons I started this show is because I want to give young athletes that, you and I coach more material to listen to. And they've listened to things I sent them. And that's such a powerful thing that these older guys really need to understand and start putting into practice. When you see a younger guy on the team make a mistake, that's your opportunity. That's your rep that you can go get and help them and build them up. And I think, that takes time. You see it a lot more in the college level than the high school level. I think that sometimes the high school kids who are in that position aren't fully aware of the impact that they can have. But I do love that story, and that is, that's the mentorship from a player to player. That's great. One of the things that you touched on there was, being a kid from Illa Bring the Noise, as I say. And, I think a lot of people could look at that as a challenge because obviously I know from stories you've shared with me, the lacrosse community was not built up back then. You didn't have the level of coaches. You didn't even have YouTube. Poor Brooksy. To improve.
VHS tapes. Let's get serious.
It's brutal. But obviously you've made it and you made a hell of a career out of lacrosse, and you're still involved as a coach now. What are, you look back on, how was that a gift, right? And this is something, I've been stuck on for a while now, is this concept of, what a gift. It's a challenge growing up in Illinois and lacrosse community lacking. But how is it now a gift to you as a coach or as a player when you were on the field? What did it instill in you? And how did you make the most of that situation?
The game of lacrosse, or just in general, being from
Illinois with lacrosse? Competing against guys when you went to Bridgeton or when you got to Syracuse who grew up with the stick in their hand and they're their grandfathers were all Americans at Hopkins and guys from hotbeds and things like that?
I think I just had that work ethic, really. I mean, when I was in high school, there was 19 high school teams. It wasn't a state-sanctioned sport, so it was all club. We had to pay our own ways. We never had any youth development stuff until, I mean, you only had indoor lacrosse that you can only play in the winter, and we played indoor lacrosse on 6-on-6 cages. Yeah, and so I was doing that, and there's nothing. So when I go to camps, I'll go to camps and just try to learn from people from that are coming back to run the camp, just specifically in Libertyville, where I'm from, and I would just try to soak in as much knowledge as I possibly can. And like every time I would go home, I would just pick up a lacrosse stick, and I did everything I can. It was just a work ethic base, isn't it? And it was something different, yes, because I played soccer growing up. All my friends would either played soccer or football, and I just wanted to do something different than everybody else, and that was lacrosse. Everybody would ask me, "What is that? What's that tennis racket with a net in it?" It's like, well, it's lacrosse, and I would have to eventually start teaching people. But it was just different, so it was something that attracted me because I personally thought I was kind of different. I was wired as a kid. I had ADHD, and my parents still say that, like, the story goes, my mom used to have to come to me in first grade or kindergarten and come at lunchtime to basically play fetch with me, to throw a ball, to have me run me out of my energy so I can go back into school and after recess and be calm because I was wired.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Xander, if you get that. But but that was just something that I loved and I cherished. And, you know, finding something that I can fall in love with, that I can be passionate about was huge. And I think when I was doing it, and not knowing the level that I can go to, I've always just loved sports. And I would try to attract myself to something that I can be passionate about and love what I do. But it really didn't hit me about how good I can possibly be until I had to deal with adversity, I think. And at that moment, that's when my mom passed away. And at that moment, I had a crossroads where I can either go this way and go down a path that I want to take, or I can either just go down a completely different path and just go down a negative way and just basically bury a hole for myself and just never dig myself out of it. And at that crossroad, I decided to make that commitment. And it was going into my sophomore year in high school. I've always been, you know, predominantly pretty athlete. I don't want to sound cocky or anything, but I was pretty athletic. And I was pretty fast, and I had the capabilities to do a lot of other sports. But at that moment in my life, I knew for a fact I had to focus on something. She was my biggest fan. I can hear her still clapping in my head right now, clapping as hard as she can. Come on, Steven, let's go. As loud as she can. I still have that. And so, like, when that happened, I was like, all right, I need to prove her wrong. And at that moment, I was going through a lot of different, like, old pictures and stuff like that. I came across a book I wrote, I think, in first or second grade. I still have it to this day. And it's talking about a team dealing with adversity, team that was down by 6 or 7 goals, and they came back and won it in the second half, and they won the championship, and this was great. And I was reading, and I was like, wow, I had the mindset at that age to think about dealing with adversity, and I never thought of it at that point. And I was like, wow, maybe that is the type of person I am today, that like this is something I'm facing. I'm not going to dwell about it. I'm just going to try to make a positive out of it and have that influence me. And at that moment, I took a completely different level in the game. Like, I would come home from soccer practice in the fall, go right to outside to my side of my house and play lacrosse until Mrs. Soling, my beloved neighbor, would knock on the window. Hey, I was like, oh, hey, Mrs. Soling. She's like, she put her hands next to her head. I'm trying to fall asleep because she was a teacher. Go back to bed. It's like, oh, yes. And that was like an everyday thing. And so that work ethic just started coming to me because I had to decompress those emotions. And when I decompress those emotions, the only way I can get loose and set myself free was to play a sport, because that's when I can exuberate all the energies I have and deal with all my stresses. So I was able to compartmentalize my stresses to that specific sport that I fell in love with, that I knew my mom loved, and it was just something I latched onto. So that was like instilled in me at a young age. And then growing up, you know, was told like, you know, you're good, yada, yada, you can go play this, you can go do that. And I was like, that's great and all, but I need to prove it. And when I got recruited at Syracuse, I went to Bridgeton Academy for a year because after my mom passed away, I didn't do well in school. I just thought my athletics was going to take care of it all. And unfortunately, I learned the hard way when the clearinghouse came about. And it's like, dude, you're not even going to clear the clearinghouse. You need to figure your life together. And that's why I had to go to prep school year, because I figured out 1 year too late to fix my GPA. So I get recruited, but that moment I got recruited to go to Syracuse is when more doubters started coming after me. Oh, you're going to Syracuse to play lacrosse? Brooksy, you're not going to be able to see the field to your junior or senior year. You're going to be a clearing midi. You're just going to be a guy that's off to the side. And again, when like people say stuff that they doubt me, it just registers and stays in the back of my head. And that was just something, again, another motivation. What would my mom do? What would my mom be saying? And I'm just thinking, all right, I'm going to prove everybody wrong, and I'm going to go do something about it. And that's been instilled to me this day. But like being always doubted has given me the ability to do what I can do. Because like you said, you're going against guys that are predominantly born with a stick in their hands. Yeah. And I just always wanted to prove to them, like, yes, they may know everything, but I want to be that sponge that wants to continue to learn and wants to continue to develop. And how can I manage to continue to do that and push myself past these guys? And that's just with the hard work. When everybody else is sleeping, I was up doing something else to try to make myself better. And that was just the competitive edge that I had. And I just wanted to be the best player, honestly. Again, this is going to sound cocky, but I wanted to be the best player to ever come out of my state. Yeah. I wanted to be that type of person that can influence kids and make sure that they can do whatever they wanted to do. So when my dream was to come back to Illinois and be in Illinois and be that type of role model for those guys, to say, hey, look, I was in the same position you are. Look what I did. Doesn't matter where you're from. It's a matter about the hard work and dedication that you're willing to put in to be a good person that you want to be. That's going to get you to where you need to go. Yeah. So that was like always, I know that was a long-winded answer, but that was like the main reason of who I am today is because of all that in athletics.
I mean, that's exactly it, though, with the question that I wanted to get into is, how could you take these challenges and adversity and turn them into a gift? And you did that in multiple circumstances and throughout your whole life. And that's obviously the reason you were the player you are and the person you are and the father and the coach that you are. So that's exactly what I wanted to get into with that. And I hope, the people that listen to that can hear, you lost your mom at a young age. You were going down a really tough route academically. You had a ton of people doubting you. There was a lot of potential confusion and lack of direction, but internally you had a self-belief there. And then you learned how to, and maybe just on your own volition, you learned how to take that negativity and turn it into a force. And the doubters that fueled you, and those things, and that's a skill set, and you can learn that. And for me, I gain a lot of inspiration from hearing things like that. And that's one of the reasons, again, why I wanted to start having these conversations, because I want these kids that we coach, I can send them a podcast, and for them to listen to that, in that 2-minute segment right there, and to get fueled up and be like, yeah, I got people doubting me right now. And like, my grades aren't too hot, but I can get back on top of this. So that was exactly it. And I appreciate you sharing all those things. Staying on that topic of gifts, right, and challenges and adversity as these gifts, right, and they become our greatest teachers. Can you think of something else, maybe a physical challenge that you had gone through at some point, maybe something later in like the college career or being a pro that ended up being a great gift for you? And I'm thinking, and I know, because we have a relationship, I know you've had some injuries, maybe something along that end that helped you learn how to better take care of yourself. Anything on that end pop out?
Yeah, my ACL. My ACL, I tore my ACL my junior year, so that was 2006. Very first game against Army. We just got brand new field turf. I'm going down and playing. I just take a weird step. I had the still picture of that injury, but it's like I took a step to try to step around the crease to fake low, go high against Adam Fullerton, who's now a good friend of mine. We still talk about this to this day. But I came out and just, boom, popped my knee. And I was like, the competitor that I am, my trainer's like, hey, I don't know if you can go back out there. I'm like, dude, just Troy. Troy was my trainer. He took very good care of me. But like, I was just like, no, I'm fine. He goes, all right, then do a couple sprints. I was like, all right, fine. I did a couple sprints. Just try to lock in my quad because it was kind of in pain. He's like, all right, well, you're good if you want to go back out there. Like, let's go back out there. And I went to go back out there, and I went to go make one cut, and my knee literally just went, like, just everybody looked at it, and I threw the ball away, and everybody goes, oh. That moment I knew my season's over. And right when I got to the sideline, he goes, come on. And I was like, shoot. And that's when everything fell apart. I thought to myself, dude, you're tearing your ACL. That's a whole year. You got to fight back. You got to do so much you got to learn how to walk again. And at that moment, I had a couple, I'm going to say the first 2 weeks were really tough on me because you're seeing your best friends go out there and play. and you're just sitting there while they're at practice. You're in the training room doing all this physical therapy, and you're just in a ton of pain, or you're in your dorm room because you can't really walk yet. And at that moment, it was just like, okay, now what can I do? And my trainer, Troy, handed me a picture of my ACL physically tearing at that one moment. I can show you too. And it's like, he's like, this is your motivation. I was like, what? He's like, look at this. Do you want this? I was like, give it to me. And I took that picture and I held it up in my locker room. So every time I open my locker room, I'm looking at this stilled picture, and I was like, all right, now I need to prove everybody wrong that I can bounce back from this injury. Mm-hmm. And the gift that I got from it was I was able to now become a coach. So I was at that time when I tore it, we had Dan Hardy, Pat Parrott, Kenny Nims, Brendan Loftus, Greg Narowski, and a couple other like big name guys, but mostly like Dan Hardy, Pat Parrott, and Kenny Nims were like impact players as freshmen. Then they came in as freshmen, and I sat there and I was like, these guys are taking my job, and I could have said, toss them to the side. I just took them under my wing. I was like, this is an opportunity for me to grow as a leader, but more importantly, to help teach these young guys that those guys above me did to me, that I can help trickle that down to them and show them the way. And quite honestly, I think because of that injury, I became a way better player because I was able to hear what the coach is asking and watch what's going on in practice. And as soon as that's going on, I'm able to take side notes and see like, oh, so this is how the offense flows. So this is what the defense is trying to do. And so I'm like almost listening to coach, and I'm coaching myself, and I'm taking notes while watching practice so I can understand better of how the game is supposed to look or how coach is trying to perceive our offense to look. And that was just like, after a first week of like being able to finally watch practice, I just continued to coach. And I would just try to mentor those guys younger than me and just try to be the best teammate I possibly can to try to help them get to that. And we went 1-4 to the Final Four that year. Unfortunately, I didn't play, but it was awesome to see the transition from these three freshmen coming in and being primetime impact players for us because, ultimately we wanted to win, and it gave me that gift to not think about myself, but think about the betterment of my team and try to push everybody else to get to that level of achievement that we all wanted to attain.
Absolutely. It makes me think the part you said about becoming a better player, and you hear right on the sideline, you can hear what the coaches are saying. I had a similar experience. I tore my shoulder my freshman year, and after getting over those first couple of weeks of being down and out, being on the sideline and listening to the coaches, seeing the mistakes on the field, and I had this awakening. I was like, man, this game's not that hard. Like, I can do these things better than I thought I could. And that perspective shift was really important for me. That's something I try to tell players when they get hurt is, watch from the sidelines. Just be there. Observe as much as you can. And then the other piece, celebrating others' wins, right? And seeing the guy who stepped up into your spot and seeing him have success, being the guy who's carrying a water bottle while you're on the crutches, right? And what that does for you as a person. And at first, you do it, but then you really start to realize, oh man, I'm having an impact in a way that I never thought possible. And that's a blueprint for later on. And the other thing I want to touch on, because I know you've had to have gone through this experience that I shared after a surgery. You went on and you had a great career at Cuse. You won 2 national championships. You won the McLaughlin Award for the best midfielder in the country. And then you went on and played 11 years professionally. You don't play that long without having a recovery model, right? And I know from our friendship, we've shared conversations over the Norm Attack, like you prioritize recovery. So the thing with surgery, and I got a couple kids specifically right now that are dealing with some collarbone breaks and just got surgery in the past couple weeks. And the one thing I'm trying to tell them is that, you're going to build back from ground zero, and you're going to have a formula for how to build yourself up from that, and that will stay with you. So what are some things that you prioritized with your recovery? Maybe it stemmed from that injury. Maybe you just picked it up later on. But when you think about recovery and playing as long as you did, what are some of those things, those habits that you formed?
So I'll go back to my ACL tear, is that I was told I never had a right hand. And I wanted to make sure that my right hand was just as good as my left.
I love it.
And I remember there's a machine, I don't know if they still use it to this day, but you lay down and you put your leg in it, and it's like a slow moving machine. It goes, and it just basically flexes your leg for you to get the ACL moving. So all that swelling and everything can get pushed aside. So I'm just laying there, and I'm just like, I have a hard wall like right here next to my bed in my apartment. And I'm just like, you know what? I got to teach myself how to throw right-handed. I was like, the only way I can do this right now is I just got to try to teach myself how to throw right-handed. So I grab a lacrosse ball, I get done with the machine, I sit against the wall, and I literally just sat there and just threw the ball with my right hand as much as I possibly can against the wall. Because naturally, what people don't realize in lacrosse is if you want to work in your right hand, offhand, you got to learn how to throw with your offhand. It's the same mechanics of when you throw is on the lefty, so your top hand is the control hand. Righties, their right hand's the control hand.
Yep.
Teaching yourself that motion is going to be beneficial because it's the same motion as you throw in lacrosse, as you throw a baseball or football.
Yes.
So I sat there and I was just throwing the ball, and then finally, like when I was able to go on crutches, again, after practice, I'll crutch over that one spot where Coach Donahue called me Sunshine, and I'd sit there and I'll sit in a chair and I'll just play wall ball. I think of probably 200, 300 reps. I'll do a majority of them righty. I'll sit there in a chair, get line up a bunch of cones below me and put a bucket of balls right there. If I didn't have a bucket, I'd just line up a bunch of cones and just make sure they could stay in one pile and just sit there and just shoot. And I just constantly shot because I wanted to make my weakness my strength.
Yep.
So I wanted to be comfortable because, again, you want to step foot on the field. So that was like the biggest thing I needed to do is I needed to find how can I use my right hand and utilize this. And then on top of all that, it's just like the mantra was just, take care of your body. And at that moment, I was like, all right, I should probably watch what I eat. I should watch what I do. We're in college, so the weekends you want to try to have a good time. But then I realized, well, if you do drink, that's going to set you back 2 or 3 days.
Yep.
So I tried to take that away to let my body heal, because ultimately these guys don't realize is that what you put into your body is what you're going to get out. So if you're not putting the proper stuff into your body's just going to consistently try to keep fighting against you, and it's going to restrict you. In that moment, I realized, wow, I'm starting to feel really good. My recovery's going well. I'm starting to do physical therapy 2 times a day. I'm not getting as sore, and I'm starting to do all these things that I'm seeing benefits from. And I'm just like, all right, now how can I continue to maintain this? And the biggest thing was active recovery. And athletes don't take care of themselves after games. They get done with the game, they may just ice their knee, or they may be stubborn and say, no, I don't need ice. When ultimately that's the best thing for your body is rest and recover. And, the science, and when I was in college, I think the coolest thing was called Game Ready, which is just something they put around your leg, and it's like flushes water, cold water in and out, so it keeps the swelling down. I mean, granted, they had like these purple tools that would scrape you. I would ask my trainer to do it to me. It's the most painful thing. Yeah. I would probably be in tears at some times because it was so painful, but I knew it was benefiting my leg to make me better. But I don't think until I got into the pros, when I finally started actually having money and realizing, okay, now how do I invest in myself? Everything was given to me at Syracuse, and it's easy for these kids to understand that their parents in high school can help them, supply them some stuff, or their training room. When you get to college, you're depending on your physical trainers to take care of you. But the moment that you get out of college, you're on your own. You don't have a trainer. You maybe have like a strength and conditioning trainer, but that's it. You don't have all the access to all those medical medical machines that can help you get better. So I made an investment on spending the money to buy my Normatecs, and, getting all the foam rollers, getting the Theraguns. Yep. And, when you play a game after an MLO game, people don't realize this, but when you travel, your body swells. If you had the injuries I had, I tore my ACL, I had back surgery in college, I broke my left foot, I had hernia surgery, I tore my left meniscus. And after I had ACL surgery, they had to go back in there to shave my femur so my leg can actually straighten out. So like all these injuries, I've just learned each step of the way, and being able to take care of my body after those games was huge. So if after a game, I would ice bath, and then I'll get in my Normatec, and I would literally sleep in my Normatec. I would wake up the next day to go get back onto a flight to fly home feeling 100% fresh. Yep. And usually those Sundays, it's like you wake up, you can barely walk, and then you start having kids. The moment I got in that door, my wife, Sarah, bless her heart, would be like, hey, I've had these kids all weekend, watch them. And I'm like, oh, I just played in a game. I'm so exhausted. But I started feeling good about myself. And that is the biggest thing. You have to invest in your health, and you have to invest in the ability to make sure if you really committed to this game, you want to have longevity, you have to watch what you do and watch what you're putting in your body. Because, a lot of young kids don't realize that. And they always say, and I'm sure you said the same thing as I said, it's like, man, if I knew now what I can do, if I know now what I didn't know back then, I would be such a different player. But it's true. And these guys need to understand that if you could take care of your body, you can have a longevity in whatever you try to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I one of the things that I want to discuss on this show, because I see it as the correct direction to go in. Easy, big fella. Is
Big Yeti.
Yeah, Big Yeti. Is peak recovery over peak performance, and that has to be the foundation for any athlete. And those conversations were present a little bit when I was in college, but it was lighthearted. It was, make sure you sleep. Let's get in the weight room at 6 a.m. Well, that doesn't really make sense if we're staying up really late. And I'm not saying guys shouldn't wake up early and they should go to bed earlier, because you can do that. But it was conversations. It wasn't integrated. And that's something that I really want to do as a coach, is help these younger players develop these habits, sustainable habits about getting getting quality sleep, hydrating each day, eating well, thinking well, and prioritizing their recovery activity. So, I mean, you listed off, I think, like 10 injuries, and I didn't even know you had all those, but you had to prioritize recovery to get back on the field. And I hope younger guys that listen to this, it's just one more reminder. And the thing is, the information on recovery, it's out there, right? So they just need to be inspired and hear enough people talk about, the only reason I had my career and it went the way it did is because I prioritized my recovery. They hear that enough times, then they're going to start to understand I need to do the same. And, they can reach out to me. There's a lot of professionals out there. And just like I said, the internet will tell you about everything you need to know. So I'm glad we went into that.
But I think on top of that, I think the important thing is that a lot of these athletes need to surround themselves by positive role models and guys that can push them to that level. I think one kid's lack at the high school level is that they care more about their friends than what's around them. And little do they know that there's a lot of support that they do have around them, like coaches. I mean, I think coaches have more impact than parents.
Yep.
And that's just because, not as a parenthood, but I mean, as a coach, you seeing these kids outside of their homes, you can influence them way differently, because the repetitive things, like I say to Xander, I'll say, don't do this, yada, yada. And he's like, oh, okay. And then next thing you know, somebody else says the same thing. He's like, oh, yeah, you're right, I shouldn't do that. It's like, come on, dude, I was just telling you that not to do that like a while ago. Now you want to listen to somebody else? So it's like, be aware of your surroundings. And I'll go back to like my mom passing away. I had probably 5 or 6 moms. All of them were neighbors. Again, Mrs. Snowling would walk in my house at 7:45 in the morning. Everybody's gone. My dad was an FBI agent, so he was out of the house. 2 of my older brothers were gone, and my other brother was in college. So I'm in a house by myself as a junior in high school in the summertime where I just want to sleep. Mrs. Snowling will open my garage door, walk inside my house, scream at the bottom of the stairs, wake me up at 7:45 in the morning just to say, hey, I got groceries in my trunk. Come grab them. And like I was like, fine, Mrs. Snowling. But like looking back, now I was realizing that these people are looking after me, and they're trying to instill something in me that maybe my mom couldn't provide for me. So I should probably take this in. And all these moms and these people that influenced me throughout my life, it's like I've been able to take bits and pieces from that and realize and thank them. And that's the biggest thing, is to understand and realize what you have around you and take advantage of what you have, because everybody takes a lot of things for granted.
Totally. And a big piece of the show and things I want to talk about is mentorship. And again, going back to the beginning, that's why I wanted you to be one of the first guys on here. And it's such a powerful relationship, and it can do so much for somebody. And the awareness of the people around you and asking them the questions. And thankfully, I knew to tap into mentors at different times. And I think back on our relationship, and a lot of it at first was about lacrosse and coaching. But then over the years, it's been relationships, it's been direction of my life advice, and it's provided me so much. And I see in the lacrosse coaching and other sports, but the coaching field, people are starting to realize this power and leaning into it more. As like my business now, mentorship is a big part of the business that I'm running, because it's fulfilling, it gets results. I want to have a bigger impact. And then as well, I see other coaches talking about, hey, this is part of my program now. You're going to get access to me, and I'm going to be a bigger part of your life, versus, I'll see you at camp. And I'm excited for that, because it's better, it's healthier, right? It gets results. People, those relationships, they're so powerful and impactful. So I'm really happy to see the coaching field go in this direction. You touched on a couple other things. You touched on community, but one thing, and I wanted to talk about mindset and self-talk. And we'll start with Xander, because there's a story, and this had a huge impact on me. And I don't know what we were doing. We were hanging out at your house. We were hanging out with Xander. Xander is Brooks's was he
Six.
6 now?
Yeah.
He's like
going on 18.
He's built. He's built like a linebacker. He's probably the best athlete I know.
He's got my mom's head. It's a giant block.
He's the best. But it was a couple years ago. We're playing some game over there. Oh, we were shooting hoops in the basement on the little basketball hoop, and you were like, you got to make it before you go upstairs or whatever. And you couldn't make it, and he's like, I can't make it. And you go, hey, we don't say I can't. What do we say? And he goes, I can try. And I remember being like, shit, that's really good. And I started using that, and I caught myself saying I can't, and then I immediately was like, wait a minute, no, I can try. And I've helped that with a ton of my athletes. That simple one, and I mean, it's just golden. So that one always cracked me up, and I wanted to touch on that. But going into the other one of ITFM, you sharing that with me, can you talk about what ITFM means, when that came into your game, and what maybe that provided you as a player?
Absolutely. First, I'm going to rewind real quick about what you were just discussing about mentorship and our first time meeting. I have to tell this story. You and I and Coach Bob Waters went in a truck down to Charlottesville. And Coach Waters was talking very highly of, this guy sent me some extravagant email. He's committed. He's like writing all this, like he's got all these aspirations. And we get in the car, I'm in the front seat, you're talking. And this is the first time I'm meeting you, and all I hear you talking about is you want to be the world's best at this. You want to be the greatest person that ever does this. You want to do this. And I'm thinking, obviously in the front seat, being ignorant, being like, oh my God, this is like a Johnny Tryhard. Like, what is going on? And then I started talking and diving more into what you were talking about. And at that moment on the car ride to Charlottesville, I was like, wow, this guy's brought into my life for a reason, and he's in this car for a reason. It just so happens you wear 44 as well, which is even amazing. But it was just like, oh my, I'm digging this. And I can see your passion pour out, and what it did to me, it helped me think step outside the lines of just lacrosse. What else is there that I can attract to, that I can pull into the game of lacrosse and help coach? And you actually helped me out tremendously about thinking not just X's and O's, but thinking about the Jimmy and Joes and who they are and what they're about and how to intrigue those players. I just needed to add that because as you say, I'm a mentor to you. I don't see it as a mentorship. I just see it as a friendship. Yeah. But you impacted me, and we talk almost every other day for about, even if it's 5 to 10 minutes, it's impacted my life every day that we talk. Yeah. So I thank you for that.
I appreciate you so much saying that. Because we'll just dive into the mentorship thing for 1 second. We'll come back to ITFM, don't worry. But one of the things that I learned through the suicide prevention program, Source of Strength, that I do, is mentors as a huge part of our lives, and the power in telling your mentor that they are a mentor to you and what that does for them. And I've seen it with the kids I've worked with in the schools, and them to go to their guidance counselor, to a teacher, to coach, and be like, hey, just so you know, I really look up to you. And I've had kids come and say things like that to me. And I mean, it's the most fulfilling feeling. And also now there's this intimate communication where they know I care about them. I know they care about me. Our relationship's stronger. The trust is deeper, which allows for greater lessons to be shared. So it's a super powerful thing. The whole reason I brought you on the show is to tell you that. No. I appreciate you going back to that. But we can always talk mentorship and friendship. Yeah. We're not going anywhere. Let's talk about self-talk. Let's talk about mindset and ITFM.
Well, going back to Xander's story.
Okay.
I'll go back to Xander's story. As a father, it's important to me to instill those things that my dad instilled in me. And on top of all that is you want to take the best qualities of what your parents did, and then every daughter or son is completely different. There's always that I wish my dad did this, or I wish my mom did this, or there's I wish they would have done that. And so I'm trying to tie in the best qualities that my mom and dad did to me. Not saying that they were bad parents, they were excellent parents. I mean, my dad was the only reason why I was able to go to Syracuse is because of my dad. Yep. But I was trying to take the best qualities that they brought, and then other qualities that I think that I wish I had to instill on and that's what I want to try to do, is take the best of both worlds, clash them into one, and see what I can create. So when you see that, I'm tough on him for a reason. He's 6, and I treat him like a 12 or 13-year-old because he needs to understand toughness. And the whole thing, I can try, it's just, if you say those words, I can try. The easiest thing to say is I can't, and walk away. But the hardest thing to do is say, I can try. All right, let's focus and do it. And when you have that accomplishment, it's like, holy cow, I just tried that one extra rep, and that's great. And it goes back to like training. Cannot leave the field unless I hit like whatever number it is, a certain amount of corners, certain amount of pipes. I still, to this day, if my wife's telling me, hey, dinner, come inside, we got to eat. It's like, hold on. I'll sit outside for an hour if I have to shoot a 3-ball until I make it. And then I can finally go in. I cannot leave the field without having a successful moment. And that's what I'm trying to instill on Xander by saying, don't say I can't, just say you can try it. And the ability to overcome that is huge. And now going back to college, ITFM, my roommate at the time was Derek Polikbiak. He was a transfer from UVA. Shout out to Derek Polikbiak. I haven't talked to you in a while. I haven't talked to you in a while, but he was a wild man. He was like me. He stayed up late at night, and him and I would always just chit chat and talk. And he came across to me. He's like, Brooksy, you got that mentality, but you need to be a killer. I was like, what? What? He's like, you need to be a killer. ITFM. I'm like, what does that mean? I'm the effing man. And he's like, tape that on your wrist. First game, tape it on your wrist and see what it does. When you like look down at it, to say I'm the effing man. And so I did it, and I'm like, I looked down, and all of a sudden I looked down, I was like, ITF, oh my God, I am the man. And I was just like, it just overcomes me by saying that. It's like, I am strong-willed. I don't care who you are or what you've done, or if you're a 2-time, 3-time, 4-time All-American or the best defenseman player in the world. I'm going to do everything in my willpower to beat you. And if tables return and I was playing defense, I am the effing man. I'm going to shut you down, and I want to prove you. I want to do whatever I can to beat you. Anybody that stepped foot and wore an opposite color as me, I wanted to prove them wrong. I wasn't a dirty player. I was a very competitive player. So everything I try to do was the benefit of trying me to have win and trying to be successful doing it the right way. And so ITFM was just my motto to say, I can believe in myself. I believe in my abilities to get me there, and now I just need to prove it. And I don't need to prove it to anybody else but myself and my family if they're watching. And that is something kids lack, is because they want to care about the showmanship of their friends, or they want to make sure they do something cool. But really, you just got to be able to dig deep and just have that confidence in yourself to be willing to go after anything that's in front of you in a confident way by saying, I'm the man.
I love it. I love the ITFM piece. I think there's mental imagery involved, because when you look down and read it, you're not going to see yourself getting beat. You're not going to see yourself getting knocked down. But if you do happen to visualize yourself getting knocked down, you see yourself getting right back up, right? And you're seeing the best version of yourself before you go out on the field, right? There's also, you're probably visualizing, and it's helping your body language, because there's no way you can read that and believe it. And we know that you've put in the work to deserve to think that too, right? Because this confidence piece, you have to be competent. You have to develop your skill through preparation. It's twofold. But if you've done that, and now you're leaning into it, right? And you're getting your mindset as clear as possible, it's such a powerful thing. And then, you're aware it's about your journey. It's not, I'm the effing man compared to all the other guys. No, it's, I'm the effing man to myself, and I'm going to achieve the best that I possibly can do. And that is sustainable. And that's something that everybody can lean into, right? And controlling the controllables. And when you said, younger people tend to struggle with this, I think it's part just the development of young people, right? But also, there's a lot more distractions now with social media and whatnot. And I think for everybody, we need to move away from self-comparison and always lean towards self-improvement. And I've been thinking about those words a lot recently. And anytime, this is where mindfulness comes in. And if you catch yourself comparing yourself, being jealous of others, envious, which happens a lot when you're looking at Instagram, right? But catching yourself, having a mantra, ITFM, having a poem written on your wall, having things that you can go back to, that you implement every day, that will focus you back into what you can control and who you want to be, are just so powerful. I love that story. And I think about in college, and I did the eye black all over my face, and I did the big eyes here, and I was the Skeletor or the Reaper. And that was something in the locker room where I was telling myself, like, dude, you were the baddest version of yourself. You got this. And it helped. It got me psychologically prepped to go hit the field.
The reason why I call it war paint.
Absolutely. There's something about self-talk I was going to touch on.
I guarantee you're probably about to go quotes.
Quotes, my man. Thank you. The mantras.
Yes,
the mantras. Okay, so I know through discussion, I know that you're big into the quotes, as I am. What are some that maybe as a player, but also now as a father, as a coach, things that you go back to often? Maybe it's every day, every couple months, every couple years. What are some of those quotes or mantras that you go back to, and what did they provide you?
Well, the biggest one I had, my good friend at the time, his younger brother was a big-time football kid, and he was obsessed with Penn State and Paterno. And I'll never forget the first time I came to his house. There's quotes all. In order to get to his room, you had to walk. He was in the basement. You had to walk through his brother's room, and then his room was over here. His brother had quotes all over his bedroom. It's like, what is going on? It's like, I don't know. My brother's a Penn State, not Paterno fan. And then I took the time, like, as more I got over that, I started reading them. I was like, wow. And the one that stuck to me is the road to success is always under construction. So to me, that means put your hard hat on and get to work, because nobody's ever going to pave your own road besides yourself. And if you want to have it a long, bumpy road, then it's going to be a long, bumpy road for you. But if you can control the things that you can help pave it, of course you're going to hit speed bumps. Of course you're going to hit road construction. Of course there's going to be heavy storms or something that can knock you off. But evidently, the biggest thing is as long as you continue to work on your road, go to work, do your job, and do it well. Those are the things. And then the other one was Spencer Ford, who was a mentor of mine in the mental game. He's an unbelievable mental kind of person to look at these things. He asked me, he goes, "Hey, Brooksy," and this is when I was with the Bayhawks at the time. He goes, "Look up Man in the Mirror." And the Man in the Mirror, when I say that, all the kids at the PVI are like, "Oh, here comes the Man in the Mirror talk." But it's the truth. If you stand in front of a mirror and you tell yourself one thing and you know you're thinking something else because you didn't do it, then you're lying to yourself. So what's the point of sitting there lying to yourself? There's no reason you should be lying to yourself. You have to be upfront and honest with yourself if you want to have success in life. Yes, you can say, "Oh, man, I'm too tired to do this." But like at the end of the day, if I can look in the mirror and say I gave everything I possibly got, then I can say, okay, what didn't I do that I need to improve myself on the next day? And that is the biggest, most self thing that you can do, is just to be honest with yourself as a person so you can understand you as a whole. And being the man in the mirror, that guy never lies, because the only person that's going to lie to is yourself. Because you can say all these things that you want to other people to make you look cool, but ultimately when you look in that mirror, you know it's not true. So you're just beating yourself down, and you're being more down on yourself when you can't be positive and carry yourself in the right way.
And it'll catch up to people.
But the biggest thing I'll have to say is that these athletes is the book Mind Gym. I think Kip Turner, again, when I was playing for the Bayhawks, Kip Turner still reads it to this day. He passed on his book to me, and he had me read it. And it was nothing where you read chapter to chapter to chapter. You can pick any kind of chapter you want. It talks about the psychological aspects of sports, whether it becomes pitching, from all different types of sports and all these different mental aspects you can look at to better yourself as an athlete, not to think more about the past, but be more in the now and not worry about the past of making a mistake. And I would read a chapter, exactly what he said. I would read a chapter or read something the night before or the day of the game, because we usually had night games in the MLL. I would find a chapter that relates to something that I'm going through right now, and I would read that part just to give me that ability to try to re-engage myself into the athletic world, to try to clear my head up. And that was another and then you personally got me reading all these books. The Inner Game of Tennis. Another book I read is The All Blacks, which I think is a book that everybody should read. If you don't know what the story is about All Blacks, it's about a rugby team. But the biggest story is it doesn't matter who you are, how great you are as a player, and it doesn't matter if you're the best in the world or the worst in the world. If you're the best in the world, you should expect yourself to do everything that a blue-collar man should do, whether clean up the balls, whether pick up the water bottles, whether clean up the towels. Do something that doesn't make yourself feel as if you're the king. You want to try to treat others as you want to be treated. So in order to do that, why would you stare at a janitor and watch him sweep it all up? You as a person should try to go there and help him out and do those things, because there's nobody that's too good to do anything. You should be willing to do everything for and help everybody. And I think that's something that spoke volumes about how I carried myself and how I do. Sarah, she hated it. I was always the first one in the locker room, the first one in the field, and always the last one to leave, because after games I would clean up the locker room with all the extra equipment guys that we had. I would clean up the locker room. They'd like, "Well, we got it, Brooks." He was like, No, you don't got it. These guys trash this locker room. That's unacceptable. I'm going to help you clean it up because they're my team. So I'll put the towels up, dirty towels. I'll pick up dirty jerseys, all the trash, anything you name it. I'll be the last one. And Sarah's like, "Oh, what took you so long?" I was like, "I'm cleaning. I have to do this." And she slowly, over the years, finally realized it and just accepted it, that I'm going to be late, or she'll just drive home at that point if it was a home game. But that's how you got to treat others how you want to be treated. And in order to do that, you got to be willing to humble yourself and do things that aren't usually something you would want to do.
Totally. Yeah, it makes me think of the more you give, the more you live. You know, if you want to be respected, you got to give respect. And I've seen it, you know, with guys who are willing to stay after and pick up the balls and clean up. You know, it may not be the first night, but over time, that energy goes back in towards the team, and people pick up on it at some point. And it may be after the career's over. It may be after guys leave college, and then they talk about, man, you did things a certain way, and it had a bigger impact, and I'm realizing it now. But sometimes people pick up on that stuff in the moment. You know, going back to the quote that success is a road that's always under construction.
The road to success is always under construction.
Thank you. Love
so
that.
Get your hard hat on and get to work.
Get your hard hat on, baby. I love that. And I think there's so much power in being prepared for adversity. And when things come up, you almost expect it. You don't want it, right? You're not trying to attract extra challenges and tragedy, but there's going to be uncomfortable places in any part of that road to success. And when you anticipate it and you expect it and you're prepared for it. And I think about, I don't know what journaling activity I did, but the question was, what are some things that are going to get in the way? And what are you going to do when they get in the way? And I was like, man, that's such a powerful question to think about, because it's easy to just be like, oh, what do I want to achieve? What's this? What's that? Okay. What's going to get in the way? Now think about that. Well, myself, I'm going to get in my way. How, you know, there's so many ways to go down that. So I think there's a lot of power there. And, you know, leaning into the difficult things. I mean, that's part of the reason I said in my first episode why I'm doing this. I want to become a better speaker and storyteller and communicator. What are you doing, Troy? Sound guy's going wild back here. It's okay. A lot of movement.
They're probably like, do these guys ever stop talking?
I hope you get the afternoon free. But, you know, being able to recognize, man, here's some resistance. And I know now through previous experiences that I'm not going to shy away from it. I'm going to lean into it. And doing the hard thing, doing the right thing is such a skill. And you come across it and you're like, man, you feel it. You're like, man, this is tough. Oh, wait a minute. This is exactly what I should do. So much power there. And I think those mantras, they play a huge role. And I know they have for me.
I heard a great one yesterday.
What do you got?
Are you the willow or are you the oak? You ever heard that?
Can you go with the wind and handle it and be flexible?
Can you go with the wind and handle and be flexible and stand on and be tough? Or are you going to be as posed as something that stands tall and strong but can easily get pushed over and knocked over and dead in the wind? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have to be flexible. We got to be able to handle adversity with fluidity, but at the same time stay rooted in our core beliefs and know what we're trying to do there. And you know, with the man in the mirror piece, it's so true, man. This intense self-accountability and the desire to improve, to be the best version of yourself. And the people that I subscribe to, the people that I love listening to, they all talk about that success for themselves is to just reach their full potential, right? And it's a very intimate definition that each of those people have. And that's something that goes back to self-comparison versus self-improvement, right? Controlling the controllables. And man, if I learned that when I was in high school earlier on, that could have been, I don't know what my life would have looked like. I'm pretty happy with the way things have turned out, but I know maybe I wouldn't have felt as much pain at certain times. And maybe maybe I could have helped people earlier on. I think I like to think about it that way. I would have been able to help people earlier on. Right. I think kids these days are thinking more about how to paint their collar blue instead of just be a blue collar in general. And what I mean by that is I think a lot of kids expect things to be done for them, and they want to sit there and try to find the easy route to get it done or try to accomplish something. So they'll sit there and paint their collar blue, but when it rains, it's just going to wash off. But when you meet somebody of that caliber that's willing to do the time and do the effort to do the dirty work or something like that, when it rains, that collar is going to always maintain blue, and that type of work ethic is going to go a long way. And I think, like you said, going back to social media, kids struggle with that. Because, and I pick up my phone, I look through Instagram, and it's like, oh man, like look at so and so. Oh, maybe I should post something. I gotta look at this person. Or maybe I should just say, hey, I'm gonna take a quick video of myself hitting 5 corners, but I'm gonna piece those 5 corners after taking 100 shots and tell people I just went 5 for 5 hitting the corner. And that's completely different between painting and doing. And so that's why I try to tell these kids to stay away from social media, because it can be a distraction. And I took social media off my phone for a month, and it was the greatest thing I've ever had. And I still try to have it off my phone. I have a time limit on my phone where I'm only allowed 15 minutes, and it shuts off. And I was like, all right, that's good.
Yeah.
I don't want to surround myself and try to be somebody I'm not. I just want to maintain being blue collar.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll say a piece on social media really quick. I've done the social media fast. I've gotten kids to do it with me, and everybody says, wow, what a gift that was, having a few days away from that. And I'm a little bit more aware of how much time I was spending on it, or maybe the negative impact that it was having. But the other thing that I did that it really helped me was I came up with a vision for my social media. So even 3 years ago, I would get anxiety or a little bit of stress about in my Instagram. Like, do I use it as a coach? Do I use it to connect with friends? Is it just purely a distraction? Do I show my relationship? Do I don't? And it was a cause of anxiety for me. But then I realized, I said, well, I don't have a vision for it. And now I'm big on my vision for life. I lean into that. I think about it every day. So I said, okay, my vision with social media is I'm going to attach it to my other vision about helping people, having a positive impact, and being a Hall of Fame coach. And that's what it is. And once I decided that, I was like, okay, I post things because I want to help other people. And I want to show a level of lacrosse expertise that is going to help lacrosse professionals. That was a huge shift for me. And it's something I try to talk with kids about. And the ones who I talk with, and they're like, yep, I'm good on social media, I'm not too anxious about it, they use it for a specific purpose. They're like, yeah, I do. I love it. I love all the lacrosse accounts that I follow, and I'm doing it for recruiting. And then other kids are like, yep, I do it to connect with friends, but I have a time limit. So there just has to be some type of boundary on it. There's a lot of great things that can come from it. I'm going to hopefully use social media to expand this, but definitely something to consider. What is my vision with my social media? And that goes for anybody, not just the kids.
Well, let me ask you this. What was the biggest turning factor to make you get into from last year? Because you turned over a new stone. Like you started getting suicide prevention. You started getting, building your own podcast. You were writing more in your journals. You were reading more books, and you just took a turn in your life. There's something, I don't know, if there's something happened, or you just came to a moment or a crossroads. What was that moment that made you help focus? And you're doing a lot of things right now, and you're doing a lot of things to help not only yourself, but to help others. And you're almost like not wearing yourself thin, but you're just constantly busy. Like when I talk to you, it's like, all right, I got a lesson. Yep. Hey, I got 5 minutes. I'm away. I got to go do this. I got to go do that. What was your point that made you turn over? Because within the last year, you completely flipped.
Yep. Not
completely flipped. I'd say that you started taking a more direct action towards what you want to accomplish. And was there something that influenced you, or was it something that just said, hey, I've reached this point, it's time for me to start focusing up?
Absolutely. I'd say this trajectory, it started back in college, and I went out into the woods to meditate, and I was sitting under a tree, and this thought just came to me, and it was, help others. You can handle pain. This was the thought. I said, you can handle pain, help others deal with theirs. And that, I really just felt it. It felt so authentic. It felt almost divine, and wherever it came from, so I ran with that. And then that has evolved, right? So it's been this trajectory. But in the past year, it was right before COVID, and then kind of as it was happening, I just had this thought, and it was, what if you went all in on yourself? And it didn't take me a lot to really start to nitpick at what that would look like. What would my nutrition look like? What would my business plan look like? What would my time on my phone look like? All these things. And I have so much room to grow, and that'll be a forever journey. But it was that phrase, it was that mantra. What if you go all in on yourself and really, chase down this vision that you have, and then continue, get more clear on this vision? What does it look like? Who are the people that are going to go and do this with me? And, it's a lot of self-reflection, but I would say it really was that question. And I was just at a point where I was ready to strive to go all in. I think as a player, I did that for a little bit, but then after college, I wasn't fully ready for that. And that commitment, that intense commitment to myself.
You want to be a kid still a little bit.
Want to be a little bit of kid. Hey, I want to be a kid forever, though.
I'm always
a kid.
You know what I mean?
I was thinking about the other day, I was talking with my girlfriend, and what did I say? I was like, I hope I'm
Hey, Kat.
Hey, Kat. Hey, babe. You're the best. Coach Kat. She's the best. She's the best. And I was thinking, I hope I'm 100 years old on the field, and I'm just I said something about being a big kid. And the coaches, the kids being like, dude, Coach Mabes, what a loon. That guy, what a goofball, So I do want to keep that youthful energy, hopefully forever. But yeah, there's definitely a maturity of, man, just going all in. And, I told these guys here at TPow Studios, the greatest studio land.
Shout out TPow.
Studio in all the land. And shout out TPow. And, I just told them, I was like, I'm just done playing small ball. Let's just do it, right? But also, man, getting over comparing yourself to others, that fear, right? Recognizing like, oh yeah, I'm a little bit scared because it's the unknown, but it's just the unknown. Nothing's going to bite me. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. I'll be okay. So a lot of things go into it. Couple things, because I think we got to wrap up soon.
Yeah,
but a couple things.
I got to get Xander in a little bit.
Yeah. When we were on the phone the other day, I go, man, let's think about something has to do with the PLL. And, what's something cool we could talk about? And then we realized on the phone, you're the only guy right now that has played in the PLL and now is a coach in the PLL. And I was like, what were we going to talk about there? And you were like, oh man, that's pretty damn cool. I didn't realize that, right? It was just a cool moment, So more so just like, what does that mean? The kid from Bring the Noise, like, dude, you have had this amazing career as a player. You're diving more into the coaching side now, but just looking at it in that lens, only guy to play in the PLL, coach in the PLL, to have the career you've had, the impact on others, just kind of looking back on it now from this day, like what's that feel like?
STP, something to prove. That's all I've always had. I have to prove myself. I know from when I was a little kid, I've always said I want to play professional lacrosse. And that moment was when I met Mark Millen and Casey Powell in Illinois. They came to an indoor game. I still have that poster to this day. I even showed Casey Powell when he was a teammate of mine. That I still have this. And I knew at that moment I wanted to be a professional athlete. Got to the point where I wanted to be a professional lacrosse player. Got to the point where I wanted to do this and I wanted to do that. And I just focused on what I wanted to do. And my end goal was always to go back to Illinois to help the state of lacrosse, be a professional lacrosse player. And then after that, I want to be a pro. I want to be a college coach. Well, having 2 kids, being a stay-at-home dad, and doing the things I have to do, college coach kind of put to the back burner. Sure. And so when I was playing, I learned a lot. Like Coach Mariano is a huge mentor of mine right now. And he was my coach at Florida Launch, and I still call him coach to this day. And I've had a lot of coaches like Coach Nutley at Bridgeton that I still talk to that's helped me out. But like what Coach Mariano really instilled to me is that, he realized that he would pull me into the conversations with what's going on with the team. And he'll give me the lay of the land, and he'll talk to me about my thoughts. And what I started realizing is as I'm talking to him, we're having the same mindset. We're seeing the same things. We're thinking about the same things. We may have some things that are different, but that's what you're supposed to have. But my mindset was like, oh my God, maybe I could do this. I played this game. I played for 12 years or 13 years because I did 1 year LXM and then I did my final year with the PLL. So it's like out of 12 to 13 years of me playing, I'm thinking to myself, I've seen everything from MLL being a beer league to MLL getting 100% serious in that transition and then transferring to the PLL where the finally professional lacrosse is here. Yeah. The social media, the all over national television, everything's here. And I was just thinking to myself, hey, what's the next path that I want to take? And I want to get involved and I want to help these kids coming out of college now that need to understand how to better promote themselves, how to be a better teammate, and how can they take lacrosse and make a living out of it. Because quite frankly, these guys are getting paid way more money. I mean, max salary in MLL was 16. I think like the minimum in the PLL is maybe like 20. Yeah. So like if you think about that, I'm going to come out of school and I can make a minimum of $20,000 for playing 5 years. I don't know what the minimum is, but that's legit money that you can actually save to either have a girlfriend, buy a ring, you can take care of yourself, or it can help save money to invest in something that you want or even go buy a house. Yep. So my goal was to just try to get into the professional coaching game and try to turn this sport to the right way. Yep. Not be like lax talk. It's lacrosse. It's specifically lacrosse. Where's the heritage and how can it move in the direction to skyrocket up just like how football and NFL and the NBA is. And that was the ultimate goal is I wanted to try to flip that switch. Now, I did not think that it was going to happen this fast. I thought I would have had to go through a grind to try to do it. It's just I was fortunate enough that Ben Rubior, who was a teammate of mine in the Bayhawks we won a couple championships with, he called me one day because I wanted to pick his brain about coaching pros. And it just so happens when he called me, at that moment, he was just asked about potentially being an Atlas head coach. And I started talking about how things, how it was last year with Atlas and this and things to improve and whatnot. But like at that moment, I was like, okay, well, this is my time. Like, this is happening way faster than I expected. He's younger than me, but I mean, we're the youngest staff. He's 35. I'm 36. And then Beardsley's 40 something. I mean, we're young. I mean, these guys on my team at Atlas are guys that were my teammates.
Yeah.
And the guys I'm coaching against were my teammates too. And like, I've had relationships with. So it was like hard to balance that. But my job was to be here as a head coach. And that's what I wanted to do. And I want to try to stick in this as long as I possibly can and continue to pave the way. Like, again, road to success is to continue to pave the way for lacrosse, whoever it may be. I hope I'm in the coaching game for a long time. But, I'm never going to stop at what I want to try to do. If I were to get knocked out, I'd just try to find another way to get myself involved, because it's been, since I was in 4th grade, since I picked up a stick, I have yet to drop my stick. And I will never drop it until you're going to lay me to rest with a lacrosse stick in my hands.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I think this is probably a good place to kind of recap and end it. I think you've built an incredible life for yourself. You've definitely had a clear vision along the road of who you want to be, who you want to become, how you want to impact others. You've developed a lot of great mental skills. You've had good mentors, great mentors along the way. You've provided mentorship to a lot of other people. So you as a friend and as a person have all of my respect. And I'm so excited that we get to coach on the field together and continue our relationship and do our part in the lacrosse community here in Northern Virginia and beyond. I'm excited for you, both for us to get a season here soon with PVI, but then also to watch you with PLL and the Atlas. You guys are shaking some stuff up.
Let's go.
Love to see it, baby.
We got a big draft coming up.
I know, man. Hook 'em, baby. I'm stoked. Yeah, I think next time I'll talk about how I beat you in that one horse game, but we'll come back to that another time.
The reverse pull pass. This is the never-ending story of the reverse pull pass. Jeez.
We'll come back to that another time. I think we're due for an episode 2. I can just feel the energy behind it. But I appreciate it, brother. We'll talk soon, right?
All right, thanks for having me, man. First podcast. I like
it.
Let's
go. Let's go.
Good stuff.
That was
really
good, man. That was phenomenal, guys.
Oh, great.
I told you that was just. I told you when you and I start talking. At one point,